and welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 144. I'm your host, Blaine Putney. I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Matt Smith
Good morning.
and Treg Wilson.
Good morning.
It is a wonderful Saturday morning here in Halifax. It's sunny and 20 degrees, and I'm hiding in the Habs Unfiltered studios now so that I don't have to mow my lawn again this week.
You mow your lawn? I let my
Yeah.
lawn grow for the bees.
Well, if I let it grow too much, then I lose my dog.
Yeah. My excuse is for the bees. That's what I tell
fair.
them. Oh, the bees.
Got to keep those excuses.
Yeah.
Matt doesn't need to worry about lawns.
I really do. If I don't, housing shows up and gives me a letter and they're like, mow your fucking lawn, and you're just like, fix my sink, you know? And then they drive away, right?
New
So,
record, Matt.
yeah.
A minute 32 into the show and you dropped an F-bomb. New record.
It's housing. You got whatever.
Yeah, Canadian Forces Housing. They're the best. All right, so this episode, we're going to discuss the playoff lines and some playoff talk because the Canadians, much to the chagrin of many of their own fans for some reason, made the playoffs, actually earned a playoff spot. I mean,
No.
oh yeah, that's right.
Doesn't
COVID.
count this year.
Yeah,
Another-
Doesn't count COVID.
Yeah.
They never would have made it if it was a regular season. Because we all know how they would have done against every other team not in the North.
because they played them so many times.
Right.
Let's just put this baby to bed. You're in a division of 7 teams. You play them all. You are facing the same adversity as every other team. They set the playoffs to 4 teams out of those 7. You made it. Were the playoffs unsubstantiated back in the original 6?
Or how about the 80s and early 90s when it was done by division? Top 4 teams in each division made the playoffs.
Well, it was 16. The top 16 out of 21 made the playoffs back then.
Correct. But it was top 4 per division. Montreal in the Adams division. Matter of fact, in 1993, when the Stanley Cup, they finished 4th.
Yep.
They did have 103 points, but they finished 4th. So to say the format's wrong, so it doesn't count. Well, did it not count in the 80s and 90s because the format was the same?
That's my point.
But did they have French players in the lineup?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Almost
That's
half
all
the
that-
team was French, actually.
That was
so.
our last show. That was our last show, but I'm still gonna bring it up.
That one game.
But you can also argue last year. Like people will argue, oh, they only got in because of COVID. They got in because the NHL said they were in the playoffs. They actually had to beat Pittsburgh to make it to the playoffs.
And they did.
And they did.
Because the season ended early, they had to find a way that was the most fair to get teams to figure out seeding. So they set up a play-in system, and it should have been an easy win for Pittsburgh. I mean, Montreal was 24th.
And nobody gave the Canadians a chance. They literally went out at the deadline and said, "Here's all our spare parts. We're going to trade them for assets," and that's what
Yeah.
they did. And they still were able to knock off Pittsburgh.
So they made the playoffs. You may not like the way that it happened, and it would not have been a possibility had it not been for COVID. But we can't say COVID if this doesn't happen then, because too bad it happened.
Yeah. And you can't say in a regular season, Montreal never would have made it. We don't know. We don't know how Montreal would have played against anyone else. We don't know how they would have played against Buffalo. We don't know how they could have been worse. They could be worse. Yes, you're absolutely right.
But they
But
made
then
it
again, they
under
could
the
have also
rules.
been better.
But they made it under the rules that every other team had to abide by this year.
Yeah. And in an 82 game
every team
schedule,
did
they weren't playing 27 games and 41 nights either. So
No,
That's very true. Yeah.
or
very true.
8 and 13.
So I mean, you can't sit there and say they wouldn't have done it or they would have done it because you don't know. They did it under this format, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and it's a legitimate format that all the teams have agreed to.
So Bergevin haters, 6 of 9. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, he made the playoffs, and the argument could be, great, he made it, but what has he done to help the team win anything in the playoffs?
Exactly. If you want to argue that, sure. 'Cause
That's
he
a
hasn't.
valid argument.
That's a valid argument because he hasn't. I mean, this year,
Maybe.
maybe because he did put his team together in the offseason that if on paper, you can sit there and say, this is a pretty good team, right? This
Yeah.
team could go do pretty well in the playoffs on paper.
But because they played 25 games in 41 nights, suddenly they're the worst thing that they've ever seen. The recency bias in the fan base gets to me sometimes. Like they don't take a step back and do a full view.
No, they just look at the here and now and they look, oh my God, they lost their last 5 games going into the playoffs. And they've only won under Ducharme. They had a terrible record, but also under Ducharme, they were mired in we're playing every second night. And
Injuries
sometimes back
piling
to back.
up.
We're playing 4 games a week for almost the entire tenure Ducharme was there. And you guys know me, I'm not a huge Ducharme fan, but I will defend him on this. He never had time to actually put practices together where he could work things out.
Yeah.
Never had a spring training. That's baseball. Never had a preseason.
Training camp or preseason.
Training camp, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to defend him too much, but
I hate this guy, really, but I don't want to defend him.
And he had 6 of his regulars, not just regulars, 6 of his top players out.
Yeah, all at once.
Or for periods of time, all at once. Yeah. So
those are valid. Those are valid points to why the Canadians may not have done that well. Now, we're going to pivot from that because this is playoff talk. This is one of our playoff preview episodes. We're going to go to the lines. So because of the schedule, now the Canadians are looking at a week off. They don't start until Thursday. We record this on Saturday, May 15th. This Thursday is game 1 against Toronto in Toronto. So the Canadians will have had a full week of rest and practice time that Ducharme could take advantage of. The expectation is that everyone, with the exception of Jonathan Drouin, are going to be back. How good they're going to be, we don't know, but they're going to be available to dress. So keeping all that in mind, we know that the first line is almost 100% guaranteed to be Danault, Tatar, Gallagher.
100%.
So let's just start in on that line. And Matt, why would you think that would be a guaranteed line?
That is your most consistent line that they've had since they put it together. And you know me, I like consistency when it comes to lineups and matching up your shutdown line against a top team. And I believe that it was a solid line throughout the season when they were together, when everybody was healthy, obviously. And then just historically, since that line has been put together, it's been one of those better matchup lines that you can utilize against different teams. And we've seen Danault transition into this 200-foot player, and the points are starting to come. We'll see what happens when it comes in terms of a contract negotiation. But this is a guy that's been a thorn in the side of a lot of very good offensive players over the last few years. And I believe he can do the same thing in a playoff environment.
So clearly they're going to match him up against the Matthews line. The Matthews line.
Absolutely.
And the Matthews line, Matthews, Marner, and Hyman, for lines that have played 200-plus minutes in the NHL this year together, they're the second best line with expected goals for. So, most shot generation, most chances created. They're the ones that are expected to score the most goals. They're second best line in the NHL.
Yep.
Does anyone have a guess who the first best line is?
Danault, Tatar, and Gallagher.
Exactly. Their line, under the same conditions, over 200 minutes played together, finished the season with 70.8% XGF. The Matthews line finished with 62%. So there's a pretty good gap there. And that would be an excellent matchup because of how you mentioned it, Matt. Danault likes to get into it. Yeah. Gallagher's the same. Tatar, excellent two-way forward. So that's going to be a key matchup in this series. If the Dano line can shut down the Matthews line for the most part, or at least come out as a plus,
Yeah.
then
And they can worry about, honestly, they can worry about the Tavares line by committee. They can use they can use line 2 and line 3 to see which one's really meshing against that line. I personally think it's probably going to be the Suzuki line, obviously, but that's a matchup I'm not going to say I'm not as worried about. Tavares is still a very good player, and they're likely going to have Foligno on that line or someone else. But I think it's something that you can kind of balance your lines around and see what's working, what's not, and plan your attack accordingly.
Clearly, the Matthews line is the most dangerous because you have your Maurice Richard Trophy winner in Matthews. Marner's one of the top playmakers coming from the wing. The second line of Tavares is probably going to be Foligno on the left with Nylander on the right. Now, Treg, Matt mentioned Suzuki. Who do you think should play with Suzuki on that second line?
I think they should go with Toffoli and Anderson. I see a lot of people doing their lines on Twitter. They have Anderson down on one of the bottom two lines, and I think that's a mistake. There's a huge reason Columbus got by Tampa Bay 2 years ago, and this was right from Cooper, the head coach, was because of Josh Anderson. They had no way to contain him, and he was just beating the crap out of their star players with his hits and his play.
Now, Steve Yzerman made a quote after that series saying, "We did not have an answer to Anderson."
Right. Oh, Steve Yzerman. Yeah, I said Cooper. And I truly believe you throw Toffoli on there because he's a good two-way winger. Suzuki's two-way game's coming along good. They'll provide not only offense, but I think they can keep the Tavares line in check. So, it's interesting talk about the Marner-Matthews line is I think if you take away Marner, you shut that line down, not Matthews. I think you needed time and space. I mean, we're going to get into it later. But for me, the second line should be Toffoli, Suzuki, Anderson.
I agree. That physical aspect that Anderson's going to bring with the speed is going to be a very big factor. Anderson on the forecheck, and he can score off the rush. Suzuki can thread a pass to him. When they're in the zone, his cycle game, Toffoli can find open space. He's very good at it. I mean, he finished fifth in the NHL in goals, so clearly he knows what to do to get the puck in the net. And Suzuki has lifted his game up here as the season has worn on, and he's on a roll. So he's entered the playoffs ready to go. Now, this is where where things get a little bit hairy, and we'll move on to the third line. Now, clearly there's a bias in the Canadiens organization towards veterans, and Stahl and Perry are those guys. They're the triple gold club. They've won at every level they've been at: Olympic, World Championships, Junior, NHL. They have the experience. And the expectation is that he's going to put that Ducharme's going to use Stahl in this capacity. Now, I think that would be a mistake. I believe Kotkaniemi should be centering that third line, and I know that he has struggled offensively. He hasn't scored much in the last 20 games. But with a roving carousel of wingers and roles, it's not easy to get confidence. Despite all that, defensively, Kotkaniemi has played much better than Stahl has. He back checks. He finishes his checks. He gets in the lanes. He cuts off passes. He has done a better job defensively overall. So in that third line role, I think Kotkaniemi would be the better choice. And his playmaking ability would be very beneficial, especially if Ducharme has the balls to play Caulfield on his wing. I mean, the kid scored 4 goals in 10 games, which is a 30-goal pace, playing 12 minutes a game.
I agree with that line. As a matter of fact, my line would have been Lehkonen, Caulfield, or Lehkonen, Kotkaniemi, and Caulfield. Lehkonen provide extra defense back because it's going to be Montreal's going to play a defensive game here in the playoffs. That's just the way it's going to go. However, I don't think you see Caulfield in the first couple games of the series,
which would be a mistake.
I agree. I think you're going to see the finish line. I think you're going to see Kotkaniemi, Armia, and Lehkonen, and you're going to see Stahl play the fourth line center role. That's what I think is going to happen, and I think Evans and I think that's not what I want, but what I think is going to happen. Evans and Caulfield are going to be the two guys sitting. That's what I think.
I don't know. We were going to get it. We're going to get into the fourth line here in a bit, but the line of Evans, Lehkonen, and Byron in those last couple of games were flying. I mean, Byron being rested made a big difference, but they were matched up against Connor McDavid and came out with 8 points and were plus players over those two games. So I do feel like that's going to be a line to start, because if they can keep up with McDavid, they can keep up with Matthews. So going up, if they get caught out there on a road game, that line should be able to hold on for about 30 seconds before he can make a line change. And they could also generate a little bit of offense and eat up some minutes. That's why I think that line's going to stay together. And
You've also got three penalty killers on that line.
That's right, which is a big deal for the Canadians, and we'll get into that in our playoff talk. But sticking to the lines, this is why I believe that if Ducharme is willing to be bold, because fortune favors the bold, be bold. Put Kotkaniemi in there. Sit Stahl. You sit those guys. You play Evans. You play. I don't know. You got to make a choice between Perry and Armia.
Yeah.
Do you keep Armia or do you put in Perry? And I think Perry would be the choice there because of his power play usage.
Yeah.
As much as I'd love to see Caulfield in, he is. I'm not gonna say he's the logical choice to sit. It shouldn't be that way, and then I'm a big fan of Caulfield. I'd love to see him in the lineup. However, my third line would more likely be to keep that fourth line intact that you just brought up. Would be Perry, Kotkaniemi, and Armia. And Armia hasn't been that strong over the last little while, but he's someone that Kotkaniemi's used to playing with, fellow countryman, and he's someone that's a body that can kill penalties, and he'll finish his checks. He might not have the flash, obviously, that Caulfield has and the finish that he has, even though he is Finnish. Slide that in there. That was terrible. I know. That was terrible. I know.
Hashtag dad jokes.
But that's what I think it's going to go by. That's going to be the veteran decision that he's going to make, I believe. And then he's going to keep that fourth line that you brought up that's played so well against the McDavid line intact. And they'll have just their bottom six will have 4 penalty killers. And that's not and then you'd have Deneau as well if you wanted to use him in that role. Or to Foley or Anderson, because we've seen them all get penalty kill time over the season.
Personally, I would love to see Deneau. The first line is going to stay the same. I would love to see Suzuki, Caulfield, to Foley line with a Kotkaniemi, Anderson, Armia line, or Lehkonen, or whoever you want to throw on that left side. I would probably say Armia if you can play the left side, and then put that fourth line. I just don't see, like you said, bold. Fortune favors the bold. I don't see Ducharme doing that. I just don't see him being bold like that, and I wish he would. But it's a catch-22. So say he plays all these young guys and they go out and they lose 5 games. They're going to say, well, you should play the vets.
And if they did the same thing with the vets.
Well, that's what I mean. He goes out and plays it. It's a catch-22. He needs to balance the vets with the young guys. I think Stahl should sit, but I guarantee you he'll be in the lineup. I guarantee it. Guarantee Stahl and Perry are in the lineup. And I have no issue with Perry being in the lineup, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Personally, I think Armia is the guy that should sit. But the fourth line, I think, is going to be a Stahl, Perry, Byron, or Lehkonen line. That's what I think it's going to be.
I honestly feel, and this is my personal feeling, that a team that really, really needs added scoring, a team that desperately looks for, and in a series like this, you're going to need depth scoring. Who would you rather have, Caulfield or Armia?
Caulfield.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
I just
You got
don't
to
think
you
it
got to take that.
happens.
You got to step out on the ledge. You got an interim tag on your name as a coach. Step out on the ledge. Add that
He-
scoring. If it doesn't work after a couple games, you can make a change.
Yeah.
To me, I think he should play all the young guys. I think Stahl should sit. I think Armia should sit. I think Caulfield should be in. Kotkaniemi should be in. Evans should be in. And I think if you lose with that lineup, you didn't really lose. You put out what you thought was the best lineup. You put the kids out. You gave them the experience, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But-
Caulfield. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was going to say, but he's going to play not to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why
More than
he's going to
likely. More
play
than likely.
Stahl, and he's
I-
going to play
I
Armia, and he's
I
going to
do
play.
like the thought. I do like the thought of having Caulfield in the lineup to play against the bottom six of the Leafs. The guy's a volume shooter. He averages about 3 shots a game right now in the 10 games he's played. He's got 4 goals. He'll shoot from anywhere, and you see the confidence that this kid's playing with. The defensive side is kind of what is a little bit of a.
But he's not that bad.
He's
not.
not. But the playoffs is a whole different game. He hasn't really been hit yet. He hasn't except for by a ref, right? So
And that was the
so-
best hit so far this year.
right, but he hasn't really played the physical game yet. He really, and this is obviously something that he's going to have to go through to see how he can withstand it. Personally, he's in my lineup. I doubt he's in Ducharme's, which is going to be disappointing. But
Now, on the physical aspect,
we'll see
argument,
how it goes.
your argument about the physical aspect, I think, would hold water if they were playing Winnipeg, because
Yeah.
Winnipeg is a heavy team. But
Yeah.
they're playing Toronto. Toronto is not a heavy team.
It depends on the line matchup though. If they've got him out there and he's playing against like the Simmons line or something like that, then he might
Simmons
be
doesn't
targeted
really
a little bit
hit.
more.
Like Simmons isn't.
And
Simmons
it's
is
going
a front of the net kind of guy.
that's right, but it's also going to depend on the defense that's out there as well.
They don't hit much either. It's Muzzin, and that's pretty much
Muzzin.
it.
Yeah.
Their defense is based on mobility. So they're
That's
going
right.
to close gaps, and
That's right.
so it's not as physical of a game. I don't see Toronto changing their game plan whatsoever.
It's probably not going to change very much, but we'll see. Like I personally would have Caulfield in the lineup,
Yeah,
but if you
I
look
think
at
we all.
if you look at what Armia can bring with being the bigger body, more defensive, penalty killer, et cetera, I think that's what Ducharme's going to look at. Even though it might not be the right thing to do, I think that's what he's going to look at, and he's going to play a more defensive style on his bottom six and try to really rely on his top six to do most of the heavy lifting.
He's going to do that for the first 2 games, and if it doesn't work, that's when you'll see Caulfield and Evans come into the lineup.
which will be too late.
Yeah, very much so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that he wants all his penalty killers in the lineup. I mean, they're playing Toronto, and the officials, as you'd expect, love to give power plays at opportune times. It's not the amount of power plays. It's those primo opportune moments that they get them at. Now, we'll get into that in the playoff talk. So to finish off the lines, the big, I think the big competition at center is not going to be between Evans and Stahl. It's going to be Evans and Kotkaniemi. If they sit one, it'll be one or the other.
Stahl's in. You can get.
Yeah.
I will put money down that Stahl will be in the starting lineup for the playoffs, whether you want him or not. Personally, I would go with Evans and Kotkaniemi. My center line would be Deneau, Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, and Evans.
Hold on.
It worked in the bubble. Why wouldn't it work now?
Especially after a week off where they got to kind of heal up the bumps and bruises and then regroup. Because that's what they've been missing this entire second half of the season. So
I mean, but I'll guarantee you, and I said that on Twitter, and people ripped my head off. I said the competition has nothing to do with Stahl. It's between Kotkaniemi and Evans because Stahl's already got a spot, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And over the last few games, Evans has been a hell of a lot better player.
He's
But then
had a
again,
break.
Stahl could turn around in the playoffs. Apparently, he had an injury. He could turn around in the playoffs and be Stahl from Minnesota. And then
That's what we need. We need somebody who can step in and play the way Kotkaniemi did in the bubble last year if it's him or Stahl step up and play the way he has in the past.
Yeah.
Either way, they need someone who is able to step up to that level.
Yeah.
All right. What about defense? Clearly, Petrie and Edmondson are a pairing.
Yep.
Weber
Weber is expected to be back. He's still wearing a brace, I might add, on his left hand. So he might be a little bit hampered there. So they're more than likely to put Sherratt on his pairing, which leaves Romanov, Kulak, and Merrill really in competition for those last two spots. Merrill has not impressed me whatsoever since he arrived.
He struggled.
Yeah.
He's made the impressive defensive play here and there, get his sticks in the lane, that kind of stuff, skate
But it's
back,
been
that kind of stuff.
inconsistent.
But it's been few and far between. At least it hasn't been okay. Well, and then the puck goes back to the blue line, and it goes to Gustus, and there it goes. All right, so it hasn't been that, right? So like, I wouldn't even consider Gustafson to be in the lineup,
No.
right?
That's why I never even mentioned it.
But I would, for me, it'd be Romanov and Kulak.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's who I would pick.
Romanov, I believe, is a guy that's going to elevate his game. He's not afraid to put the puck on net. He'll get in front of shots. He throws the body and he throws it hard. And with Kulak, he's another guy. He'll throw the puck on net. He'll pick up points here and there, and he picks his chances to get into the offense. And I think that would be the best line to put together.
I want it to be Romanov and Kulak, but it's going to be Romanov and Merrill.
Because he doesn't like to change what he's been using, even if it's failing. It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like Romanov and Kulak provide the mobility and physicality that you would want in a bottom pair. I mean, Romanov is clearly going to be more, but he's not ready for more yet. But in that role, he threw almost over 200 hits this year. People are going to get hit when they come down his wing. They will get hit. He is very mobile. He's able to strip pucks. He's able to move pucks up ice. He makes a good first pass. Kulak, he's not as physical, but he carries the puck. He moves up ice. He led the team in zone exit and zone entry, controlled zone exit and zone entry percentages in his limited number of games. Kulak leads the team in those areas.
No, it's Mete. You can't say that. It's always Mete.
No, it's actually Kulak by a full percentage point.
I don't believe you. It's Mete.
No.
I read Twitter, and on Twitter, Mete's the greatest that ever lived, so it has to be Mete.
Yeah, except
you seen him since he's played in Ottawa and the minutes that he's getting, Blaine?
Oh my God!
You should get on social media and start reading.
Maybe they should sign him for $5 million a year and just prove us all wrong.
When they will, you just heard it here first. So
yeah. Let's leave Mete out of this. Mete was a depth defenseman who could not get a puck on net. The actual zone entries and zone exits controlled are led by Kulak. That's the guy you would want to have on that pairing. And really, that pairing would match up well against Toronto, who are they're a team that built on speed. So that's where I would go.
Are you trying to say that Montreal's the tortoise and the Leafs are the hare because they're fast on their feet?
Slow and steady wins the race.
I'm just saying, like going back to that participation. Remember the little participation commercial?
No.
With the rabbit and the tortoise? Do you remember that, Matt?
Yeah.
You're supposed to say no because he's a grandfather.
It was a good one.
The
tortoise took the stairs two at a time.
I'm starting to show my age too, so it's all good.
The tortoise took the stairs two at a time. Elevator.
Right, so I think we're all pretty much in agreement there on the lines. Clearly, Price is starting, so
yeah,
we'll move on from there. We're going to go to the playoff matchup against the juggernaut, completely improbably ever beaten Toronto Maple Leafs, who are, according to TSN and Sportsnet, going to so dominate the Montreal Canadiens that they won't even bother to play games 3 and 4 because the teams will fold in front of Toronto.
To quote Nick Kiprios, I'll be nice and give them a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Toronto media is basically...
you're saying Nick Kiprio still has something to do with sports?
The Toronto media is just, I mean, even Craig Button, who said at the beginning of the season Montreal was going to win the division, just said that he'll be shocked if they win a game. Montreal wins a game.
And he based it off their last 3 games, which included a win against Toronto.
Not only did it include a win, but include 2 close games that Montreal had a chance in winning, with their top 6 of their top players out. So
in a very condensed schedule, which Toronto did not have. So I'm going to give a shout out to JD Lagrange. He put out a tweet. He actually went through the number of games since that COVID break that the Canadiens had and who played the most in that time span. So since the, March 17th, they came back just after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So he looked at the entire thing for the North Division, and throughout the league, the Canadiens played the most games in that time span of the entire league. The next team to show up out of the North Division was in 21st place, and that was the Toronto Maple Leafs. That amount of condensed play has a difference. It makes a difference. There is a factor there. So it's no wonder Toronto had a little bit more in their tank. They had a day off. The Canadiens had only played twice against a team that had played the night before when they hadn't. That makes a difference.
Yeah. I'm glad Montreal's the underdog. I'm glad everybody says they're going to be trampled. Anything over 2 wins or more, even if they lose the series, is a win in my opinion against everybody else. But
I mean, if I were in the Toronto media, and I'm glad I'm not, but if I were, I would be very careful about pumping their tires so much because they've done it every year. They've pumped those tires and then the tires explode on them in the first round. And then they go through this gigantic 3-month-long eulogy where they decry everything being wrong with the team when they just spent 9 months calling them the perfect hockey team. It's an all or nothing with these guys, and it's really, really weird to watch. Now, coming into this series, if anyone thinks that the Canadiens aren't going to keep this series close, they got another thing coming. They really do.
Montreal's. I mean, are we getting into game plans? Or are we just talking like what are we getting?
Yeah, the series. We're talking the series.
Montreal, if they take the time and space away from Toronto and hit, finish all their checks, pound them against the boards, Montreal got a very good chance to win the series.
Especially against Matthews, who really hates that physical aspect of the game. I know he's improved on that part, but he does not like getting hit. He loves giving the hit, but he hates taking the hits because it throws him off. His timing's a little bit off because he needs to be in a certain spot at a certain time for Marner to really be able to hit him with those perfect passes. And if he's thrown off just a little bit, he hates it.
And this is why I say I think they should focus more on Marner than focus on Matthews, because if Marner can't get the puck to Matthews, there's a lower percentage that he's going to score. I'm not going to say he's not going to score because I mean Matthews can pretty much score from anywhere almost. Like let's give credit where credit is due. Matthews
having a hell of a season.
He's probably the most prolific goal scorer in the league today.
For this year, for sure.
For this year, anyway.
Yeah.
And but if you take Marner out of that equation, he has to work harder. And if you make Matthews work harder, you're going to throw Matthews off his game. I'm not saying he's lazy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's lazy. All those people, the few Toronto fans that listen to troll us later. I'm not saying he's lazy. I'm just saying he's used to, like you said, I'm going to go here and Marner's going to get me the puck and I'm just going to put it into whatever hole I find. But if he gets there and he's not getting the puck, then he got to find where the puck is. That's going to throw him off his game.
Yeah. And that physical aspect of the game is really, that's a major advantage for the Canadiens. The Canadiens are set up They've been talking about all year. They're more of a playoff style, which is a euphemism for physical. You look at their blue line, Romanov, Weber, Edmondson, Sherratt, even Petrie are physical defensemen. Petrie had about 100 hits this year in 54 games. So it's a couple of hits per game, which is a good amount.
As a team, Montreal threw 500 hits more, over 500 hits more than the Leafs did this year.
Yeah.
Which
So
is
they're
pretty
built for
insane.
that. And finishing your check constantly. And in the regular season, it doesn't have as much of an impact as it would in the playoffs because you're playing these guys over and over again.
Yeah.
So you finish all those checks. And this is where, like you mentioned in the first half, where Anderson comes in. The importance he plays. He is a wrecking ball. He gets into people's heads. Just look at what he did to Simmons in the last game that the Canadiens and Leafs played. Simmons was getting in a little bit of a scuffle, and Anderson just walked in and just knocked him on his ass.
Yeah.
And then ever since, any time that Anderson took a hit of any kind, it was turned into a gif by a Leaf fan and say, "Ha, we got him."
Yeah.
So if you're in the heads of the Leaf fans that much, you're guaranteed to be in the heads of the players.
Yeah.
Well, he only scored 1 goal last year, so we can't expect him to do anything this year.
Except for
He
that,
he only had 24 points. So
The big thing for
pace.
me is something that I've called out multiple times throughout the season, and not just the Canadians, but a lot of teams are guilty of this. But seeing that we're a Canadian-based show, obviously it's easy to point out, is the losses that the Canadians have come up with this year. In my opinion, a lot of it can be attributed to letting the Stars have the space.
Mm-hmm.
And, McDavid's a hell of a player. There's a couple times that players kind of step back a little bit or like, am I going to finish my check? Am I going to get my hands on him? Whatever. Or am I going to let him skate by me? Well, the playoffs is a whole different animal. And if the Canadians can look at the jersey and not the name on the back of it, I think that's going to be the one of the stories of this series.
Well, that's how you want to hit them too, because you don't want that penalty for hitting from behind.
Well, exactly, but you don't want it to be like, well, Marner's coming down the wing. I know I can put him into the boards, not to kill him, but to slow him down. Am I going to do it, or am I going to coast into him? I've got Matthews in a position where I can finish a check. I've got Riley in a position I can finish a check. Am I going to do it, or am I going to coast in?
Well, this is the playoffs. Obviously, they're going to want to do that.
And that's what you're hoping for. And I think that we saw it with Pittsburgh last year, and we even saw it in the Philly series, that players were finishing their checks. And as long as they stay with that mentality and do so and not coast in like some of the times that they did throughout the regular season, I think that could be one of the big selling points of this series and could really wear down the Leafs lineup throughout a few games.
Well, part of the physical aspect and finishing checks, another part of that is that gap control that Treg mentioned earlier. To finish your check, you have to be close enough to the player to finish your check. So you have to have that tighter gap. And that's going to be a key for the defense, who are going to be the ones that are going to be throwing the most hits, especially coming into the blue line. Yep. Giving up the blue line to the Leafs is a bad idea. And in the last few games against the Leafs, they made it extremely difficult on them when they were coming in over the blue line. Now, Toronto, because of their skill level, there was a couple of moments when they got into the zone, the puck was on the stick and gone. Like Matthews, that one goal where it bounced onto his stick when he was between 4 players, and it was just in the net. That's a factor that you just cannot defend against. That skill level, you can't stop that. What you can do, step them up at the blue line, finish those checks, throw them off their game, get in their heads. That's what they're going to have to do with that physical aspect. Those tight gaps.
I just found Montreal, that was the biggest problem with Montreal this year, is they just let the other teams come into the defensive zone. Just let them come. They just come back
tired.
And set up, and they're
tired.
Yeah,
they're exhausted.
And then they just get caught in a cycle, and then finally the puck's in a penalty, or the puck gets in the back of the net, and Montreal's down by a goal or soon to be down by a goal.
If anyone's played in a hockey tournament where the tournament starts on a Friday night, your team has its first 2 games on the Friday, that your third game is Saturday morning against a team who just showed up. You're going to probably end up losing that third game because they're showing up fresh and you're not. You've already played a couple of games. Now, it's men's league hockey, so you're probably still hammered, but you're also tired from playing those 2 games the night before. That's the difference here, where the Canadians, they didn't have the legs. So now that excuse is out of the window. They don't have an excuse where they can let them walk in. They have to stand them up. If they're not, then this is the fault of a game plan.
Yeah. And you'd like to really hope that the refs will let them play playoff hockey.
Well, until Toronto needs a power play goal.
And that's what it's going to come down to. Like, are they going to be able to? Are both teams going to be able to go back and forth if that's what they want to do? And are the refs going to be like, yeah, that wasn't that bad, or is it going to be? Or are they going to have their own game plan, as you mentioned, and something that happens in the first period while someone just gets annihilated on a clean hit, and then tap on the back later on in the game, someone trips over their own feet. Oh, well, that's this or that's that, and that's the game, right?
My concern is the star power thing, where you saw Suzuki take that 2-minute cross check against Puljujarvi. Now, granted, that should be a penalty because he did cross check him.
Yeah.
But it was a weak cross check. And then later in the game, McDavid is just cracking 4 gigantic cross checks into Suzuki's back, right in front of the referee. No call.
Yeah, or the
why? Because it's McDavid.
Or the slew foot from.
To be fair, Toronto's power play is terrible.
And I was going to get to that. I have the stats here in front of me as to how good and how bad each one is.
Yeah.
I think Montreal scored 2 less goals or something than Toronto.
Do you want to get into the power play now?
Sure. If you want to, sure.
Okay. Well, overall, Toronto's power play is slightly better than Montreal's by barely a percentage point, which should really impress the shit out of me that the Canadians were that close. Until you saw the last 15 games. The last 15 games of the season, Montreal's power play has actually stepped up. Their percentage is much higher. It's about 21, 22% between there. Toronto's power play in that span is 5%.
Jesus.
Their power play right now sucks. So remember that game where they had the 5-on-3 power play and they put out their top unit? How that was a sign of disrespect. At the same time, they're trying to break through that issue. Their power play sucks right now, and they're trying to find a way out. So this is going to be a key part of the series because Toronto's going to get those power plays. They're going to be given the benefit of the doubt on a few calls that probably shouldn't be, but that's hockey. Things are going to be overlooked. Things are going to be missed. They're going to get that chance. And this is where Montreal's power play, which in the last 15 games is at 90%. It's actually improved as well. Special teams wise, the Canadians' power play and penalty kill have both improved over the last 15 games. And they need to keep those steady if they have any chance at all.
And they scored another shorthanded goal.
Yeah, they gave up a power play goal, but they scored a shorthanded goal in the same power play.
Exactly.
So they're even.
Yeah.
As if they never scored.
Special teams is going to be a key focus on this thing. I'm like Matt. I hope it's playoff hockey. You only get 2 or 3 power plays a game. I don't see it. I really don't.
It's the matchup. If they were playing Winnipeg, I think we'd see a more wide open series.
Yeah.
And you're going to see even in the other series, you really think that they're going to put, Florida against Tampa or Boston, Washington, or Vegas, Minnesota, or St. Louis and Colorado, pretty much any other series, you really think that they're going to be like standing there with their fucking whistle in their mouth? It's not going to happen. They're going to let them play. So I'm hoping that some percentage of that transfers over the Canadian series, and we can actually see a hard fought series that the better team comes out, and it's not based on a referee's game plan.
Well, and that's going to be key. I have my hopes that it's going to be a more wide open, unless it's a blatant penalty.
Yeah.
That they'll put their whistles away. But then again, it's Toronto. Now Toronto fans are going to turn around and say, "Oh, we always get the bad penalties. We never, blah blah blah." And maybe every fan base does that. I don't know, but my biggest issue with this whole series is I'm going to have to watch it on Sportsnet. I'm going to have to listen to those yahoos call. You're going to hear Matthews' name every 5 fucking seconds.
Yeah.
That's what's going to piss me off.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, not for that to happen, but that's going to be the problem. Another big thing that we got to look at that's going to be key to this series is going to be goaltending.
Yep.
If Carey Price can play like he did in the bubble last year, I don't know if we'll have an issue, because I don't think Campbell or Anderson are they gonna. I think Campbell's playing over his head, to be honest. I don't think Campbell's as good as everyone thinks he is.
No.
I don't think he's terrible. Don't get me wrong. But I don't.
He's having a good bounce back season. He really is.
But I think his record's very
inflated.
It's
inflated, yeah.
And I don't think Anderson's as terrible as every Leaf fan thinks he is.
No.
So I think it's going to come down to goaltending. If Carey Price plays like he has all season, we lose. We lose the series.
Well, I don't know. Carey Price in March was pretty good right up until his injury.
Oh, yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like, if he's going to play like he did the majority of the season, but he steps his game up come playoff time. He's going to be playing every game. He knows he's going to be playing every game, so that could be different. Because I truly believe part of Price's issue this year was he didn't play enough. I think Price is used to playing 3, 4, 5 games in a row, having a night off. Yes, we wanted Allen to play 20 games, but I think Carey Price playing 2, then Allen, then Price 1, Allen, then 2. I think that threw his rhythm off. I think Price.
Yeah, he's a goalie that needs a rhythm, and he needs to get in the zone. And the playoffs are why he tends to step up a little bit is because of that.
Yeah,
he knows the rhythm. He gets in his headspace and he can stay there.
I think that's the biggest weakness on Toronto is their goaltending, and I think that's.
Campbell doesn't have any playoff experience, so that's a big factor.
And like I say, I don't think Campbell's as good as his stats show. I really don't. But who knows?
I mean, he's having a good year.
He's having a good. I'm not taking his year away from him. I'm just saying I think it's a bit overinflated.
Yeah,
that's all.
Like I look at their goaltending right now, and Campbell will be their number 1 starting. If he starts to falter, they'll go back with Anderson, who
I don't know.
Anderson's missed time with injury. The games that he's played so far in the AHL, he hasn't looked good.
He played the last NHL game too.
And the whole fan base is going to want Campbell to be in there.
I think Anderson starts. I disagree. Yep. I think he starts the series.
He was their starter to start the year. He got an injury, and starters don't lose jobs to injury. That's always been the tradition in the NHL. Even Keefe has shown that he won't do that.
It's Toronto.
I see what you're saying, Matt. I get it. And yes, every Toronto fan wants Freddie Anderson not even on the team.
Yeah.
But
I feel bad for a guy like Hutchison. Hutchison played in the goddamn conference final with Colorado when all their goalies went down, and he actually held his own. It just got to the point where he couldn't hold it down any longer when they were playing against Dallas. And he played in Toronto for the Marlies last night. And he's a 4-5 guy now. And he only played 8 games, but he had a .919 save percentage and a .242 goals against.
Yeah, but if you go to the year before, he was terrible. He couldn't stop a beach ball for Toronto the year before.
That was for Toronto. Then he was like, see ya, and he went to Colorado and he lit it up.
Yeah, and then he came back. He came back. He's got a pretty decent numbers here with Toronto.
Yeah.
All their goaltenders do because of the way they play.
Yeah.
The puck is down the ice a little bit more. And honestly, most of the shots are coming from outside. There's not as much net front presence, but this is the playoffs. Things change.
Yeah.
Even Montreal.
I agree with what you're saying about Anderson Campbell, Matt. I agree. But I truly believe Anderson starts the series. Truly believe Anderson starts the series.
I agree. I think Anderson's going to start, and if the Canadians win that game, then that's it. That's
He's
his
out.
last game as a Maple
Campbell's
Leaf.
in. Yeah.
So we talked about the power plays and the penalty kill, two key aspects that the Canadians actually hold an advantage on right now, I believe, going into this series. Goaltending, they have an advantage there with Carey Price, if Carey Price plays the way we know he can. I do think Campbell probably going to get game 2 once they chase Freddie Anderson out. But I don't know. I don't see it as an advantage for Toronto, even though Campbell plays really well this season. I don't see it. At forward, 100% advantage Toronto. I mean, they've got the top 4. You just look at that top 4 and you're like, yep, they got the skill level. Montreal's only hope is to play that depth system that they played at the first 10 games where they were rolling the 4 lines. And to do that, they need their blue line to step up and work that transition game. So you want to have a little bit more puck movement. That's why I push more for Kulak to come in versus Merrill, because if things start to go wrong, you have more options to make changes to your pairings, like Kulak moving up and playing with Weber and or Romanov. But you have puck movers, Petrie, Romanov, Kulak, good puck movers who can really take over, or it can take care of that whole zone exit and control it, not just a dump out. Like Weber's controlled zone exits are low. It's about 40%. His dump outs are about the same amount. It's just, especially with that wrist injury, I'm not expecting much in puck movement from him. Hell, I don't think his shot's going to be the same.
What they need is what they, like you said at the first of the season, they need the defense to get involved more on the offense as well. It kind of worked for them in that little 3-game win series that they had where they won 2 in overtime. Petrie got involved, Kulak got involved, Romanov got involved. And I think you still need that. The only thing I worry is that Romanov tends to not have the confidence of when to pinch and when not to pinch. But I thought Sherratt, not playing with Weber, I thought he was pinching in, he was playing off, he was in behind the net a few times. And I loved it. I loved how Sherratt played that, and I want him to play that way with Weber. He has to act as the puck moving defenseman on that. He's
got to take a little bit more because Weber's not going to be able to.
No,
we
have to. But
we have to look at the reality of it. Weber is 36 years old. He's got an injury to his wrist. He's not as fast as he used to be, so he's going to have to play it safer.
They've got to use Weber as that trailing shot option. If they want to put 4 guys in, have them. Everyone's hemmed in the zone. Everyone's focused on the guys that are towards the net. He's a guy that's going to skate up, walk into a shot. Right? They got to play it like that and play back to play the more defensive style.
But that wrist injury, I think, is the main reason why he keeps missing the goddamn net.
Yeah. And unpopular opinion, I still think he should be on the second power play unit.
Yes, because he's a weapon on the power play, and it forces the other team to game plan for that, to go after him there.
Not the first power play unit, but the second power play. And if Caulfield's in the game, he has to be on that first power play unit, and he has to start playing on his right side, on the right side for him to shoot, which is the left side, not the right side. Why Ducharme has him on the right side, I have no idea.
Yeah, if Caulfield plays, I'd be happy to see Caulfield, Suzuki, and Petrie on one unit. Give them three shot options right off the bat.
I mean,
and passing options too.
If we go by chemistry, I'd like to see Caulfield start with Suzuki right off the bat.
Yeah, they
had good chemistry in those final 3. Or the last game that they played, they had excellent chemistry.
Yeah,
and like you said, the Byron, Lehkonen, Evans line was probably the best line the last week of the season.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I'm really excited to get Gallagher back in the lineup. He's
going to be a massive difference for the Canadiens.
I am so happy to have him back in the lineup, and as long as he doesn't get hit by another shot, then that's the only thing that's going to slow him down, right?
I'm just going to say the only person you may not see back right away is Danault. It all depends on how his concussion protocols go and his concussion.
He's skating with the team, though.
He is, but I'm just saying, I
is he
think
going to be?
he will be.
Is he going to be a guy that's going to play top minutes for all forwards? So
Well, he hasn't all
Probably.
year. Suzuki has for centers, but he
Right,
probably if Matthews is going to be out there 30 minutes a game, you're going to see Deneau out there 30 minutes a game. So
yeah,
Close
And
to
I'm
it.
okay
They're going to
with
have
it.
to find other ways to do matchups. That's where I think they're going to having someone like Evans, the way that line has been playing, they can match up
the
against
speed.
McDavid. They can match up against Matthews, not as a primary, but as a fill-in role. You know, the guy's just finished a penalty kill and Matthews is out there. Well, Evans, okay, go take 30 seconds, and then our guys, the other guys will come out.
I mean, we're back to the lines now. I just know, and you can hate on me for saying it, but I just know you're going to see Stahl, Perry, and Merrill in the lineup to start the series.
And that's what kills me is the coaches playing it safe. You can't, when you're the underdog to the level that the Canadians are the underdog in this series.
No point playing it safe.
Don't play it safe. You use your most talent possible. Now, Perry, I would have in the lineup because he has found a way to impact the game on both sides of the ice, despite his lack of speed. He's a smart player, and it's the playoffs, so he's going to get away with a lot of the shit that he used to do. You know, with the extra little elbows, the extra little cross checks. He is a greasy hockey player, and that will piss off the other team because he's not going to get called for most of that stuff. He gets in their heads. He can chirp. That's an underrated aspect of hockey. People overlook that part, but that's going to be a big factor. Gallagher is a big part of that too. Gallagher loves to talk. And I keep talking about zone entries. Gallagher led the forwards in controlled zone entry percentages. He is a key factor in their attack. So getting him back for net
Gallagher just gives
presence
them
and all of it.
like that. He's the heartbeat of the team. He really is, and he brings it every shift, and he brings it out of he brings that energy out of the team.
He's the future captain of the Montreal Canadiens.
There's a
I'd say
reason
so.
Bergevin cried when he signed him.
Yeah, I'd say you're right that he's the future captain. 100%.
But here's the issue: if you want Lehkonen, Byron, Perry, and all those guys like that in there, there's no room for Caulfield.
No, that's not necessarily true because then the choice comes down to Armia and Caulfield.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a no-brainer. You want scoring.
Yep.
Get the guy who
I
scores.
totally agree. But Armia is also one of their top penalty killers. Him and Suzuki.
But you got plenty of other penalty killers.
Yeah, you do. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Blaine.
But if you're looking at roles,
who can
fill these roles?
I'll be shocked if Caulfield is in the starting lineup in game one. Shocked.
Yeah,
You'll be shocked if who?
Caulfield's in the starting lineup for game.
But this is where you have to make these decisions. And if Armia's not there, who can fill in on the penalty kill? Oh, I don't know. Literally
Byron,
anybody else on the forward lines.
I agree.
If Caulfield's not there, who's going to fill in his role as a shooter for the power play and through the game? Nobody.
Kulak.
I've got that poll going on right now, and I'm just
checking. You do.
Haha. All right. Just took a quick look at it. 1,258 votes in so far with 8.5 hours left to go. The question is, which of these forwards is likely to be scratched for game one? And the players that were that I chose, Stahl, Armia, Caulfield, Kotkaniemi, and right now 51% is Stahl.
That's who people want to be.
That's
right.
exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Second at 22% is Kotkaniemi, 15% is Caulfield, 12% is Armia.
Yeah, and that's all what people are reading the question as, and they're picking who they want to sit. Stahl is not sitting. I don't care what anyone says. You can blame Bergevin, and I'm a true believer. Bergevin has nothing to do with the lineups. I don't think there was a condition of signing Stahl that he was guaranteed ice time. I don't believe that shit. Stahl didn't steal any ice time away from Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi still had more ice time than Stahl in every game, but Stahl is a veteran and Ducharme is a Julian 2.0, and Stahl's going to play.
Now that little caveat there that you said during the trade where he had to be dressed, he couldn't be scratched. That little side hustle. What would happen if they didn't dress him and they scratched him? He would choose not to sign with the Canadians again?
which he probably isn't anyway.
He's not going to anyway. So, one, I think that that rumor is bullshit.
It's total bullshit.
Two, even if it's not, who gives a shit? You play your best players at the time. If you have a handshake deal where you're not to be scratched, you're hurting the team if you're playing like crap. And if these guys are pros, they don't want to do that.
This narrative that Bergevin is running the lineups and telling the coach who to put in and put it out.
No.
Whoever spread, I mean, I know who you are, and one of you, I don't understand because none of your three favorites have ever said that. But
I know who you mean now.
It doesn't happen. The Bergevin wants to win. If he was worried about his job being on the line when he fired Julian, why would he go down to him and say, "You've got to play these guys. I don't care how shitty they're playing"? That is the dumbest thing anyone at any level of any organization would do, unless you're Melnick in Ottawa. GM's not going to do that.
On Melnick, my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family for their vacation during a pandemic being ruined overseas. I feel terrible for you. I don't understand why the ocean would have a storm and raise big waves when you're at sea. That's not my experience as a sailor for the last 20 some odd years. It's always been calm on the Atlantic. Never, ever had a wave. Ever. I'm sure Treg has the same experience.
Never. I've never been told to take your mattresses off your racks and sleep on the deck.
And we don't have seatbelts in our beds at sea either. No. Because that's
which
pointless.
Are useless. But anyway.
Yeah. So thoughts and prayers to Eugene Melnick. I really hope that your frivolous lawsuit gets you everything you deserve.
From my experience, the only straps that have ever been on a bed I've put there myself next to my down pillows. But I mean, did I say that out loud on a podcast? What the hell?
Was that it?
Ladies, Matt single.
Was that a strap on? The bed? I meant on the bed?
On the
bed.
And tiptoeing back to hockey.
Yeah. So playoff hockey. Yeah.
Do we have predictions? Before we sign off, it's been over an hour. We're gonna sign off here soon. So let's do a quick prediction. So we're scheduled to have Brian Mudryk come on the show on Tuesday night for our Wednesday show, just before the playoffs. So we're going to cover this with him as well, but let's get this out there now. Matt, what is your prediction for this series?
Habs in 5.
Who in 5?
Habs in 5.
Habs in 5. Okay. That's ballsy.
It is ballsy. That's why I'm saying it.
After
the comment I just made about straps on a bed and down pillows, yeah, that's ballsy too.
Yeah, you're strapping in for the long haul on this one. All right, so Habs in 5 for Matt. Treg, what do you think?
I say Leafs in 6.
Okay.
I don't want to say that. Leafs in 6.
I'm thinking it's going to be the Leafs in 7. I think the Canadians take these guys to a 7th game, and it's not going to be a walk away where they beat them 5-1 in a couple of games. And I think it's going to be 1-goal games every time. Yep. We're going to have at least 3 overtime games.
I think it'll be 6 games. I think every game will be 1 goal, maybe an empty net here or there, and maybe an overtime or so. But I think it's going to be all very close games, very low scoring games too. I think it's going to be like 3-2. 3-1, 4-3. Yeah. Now
I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to make another prediction. One of the overtime wins is going to go to Toronto, and they're going to win it with a power play goal on a bullshit call.
Obviously.
I'm going out on a limb on this one.
That's probably going to be the go-ahead goal on most games, to be honest. But
all right. So I think that pretty much covers this one. There was quite a bit of in-depth hockey talk and some weird shit at the end.
And some too much information from Matt.
So if anyone's single and looking for Matt, just go to Twitter at snakebite350. Check him out there. For those of you who stuck through this entire episode and that gong show of a segment, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for listening. We've our viewership is growing. We're getting more followers. So I want to thank you for that. Now, Matt has something he wants to pass on.
Yeah, so East Coast Company, East Coast Lifestyle, wearing one of their shirts right now. Head on over to their website, use the code unfiltered20, get 20% off. Support a Canadian company. They make some great stuff.
Yeah, also Built Bar. If you want to buy some Built Bar products, use the code unfiltered20. And it's Habs20 for the code for East Coast right now. Unfiltered20 for...
Has it changed again?
Yeah. And Unfiltered20 Unfiltered20 for Built Bar gets you 10% off your purchase.
They're protein
also,
bars, by the way.
Yeah.
In case people don't know.
Exactly. And don't forget, check out No Name Hockey. They got some great equipment. I just got a new hockey stick delivered to me here in the last couple of days. My Big Papa Pump twig. Can't wait to get out on the ice and use that whenever this lockdown ends. So, yeah, check them out. Go online. They've got a store in Winnipeg now for those who can walk in. Check them out. That's Built Bar, East Coast Lifestyle, No Name Hockey, all good friends of Habs Unfiltered. So I'd like to thank.
I am wearing pants.
I was hoping to leave that as a mystery for the show. So I'd like to thank all the new followers, all the new listeners for checking in. I hope this was entertaining. I hope it informed as well, because that is our goal. We want to have fun, but we want to put out the factual news. We don't want to start rumors. We don't want to make up crap. So we're just happy that you choose us as one of your trusted sources. We know that we're one of many, and we approve of that because we follow other people as well. There's some great people out there. We're not the only ones. So thank you for listening. And remember, if you are talking about it, so are we.